Good day, and welcome to another edition of Inside City Hall. My name is Frank Boyles. I'm the Prior Lake City Manager. Well, we've had this program on for many, many years, and from time to time we've taken the opportunity to introduce you and help you to get to know some of our department heads. And I want to start that over again, and our first victim, if you will, today is Jason Wedel. Jason is our Public Works Director, and City Engineer. Jason, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, because you've got a really circuitous route that you took to get to the city of Prior Lake, and all kinds of experiences that went with it.
That is true. So I graduated from the University of Minnesota back in 1995.
Okay. So a spring chicken, obviously.
Yeah, right.
I can see that.
Yeah. Worked for a municipal consulting firm for a few years, and then transitioned to municipal government. Worked for the city of Lakeville for a number of years, and I was in the engineering department, and then transferred back to consulting. When I got my license as a registered engineer, worked as a consultant, worked primarily for cities as their city engineer. They would hire consultants to fill their roles for city engineers rather than having an in-house staff engineer. Right. So did that for a few years. Went to work for the city of Savage. I was the Savage city engineer and public works director. And then after that, I did a little stint in land development, worked for a national home builder for 6 years doing...
So private sector.
The private sector, yeah. The dark side. Did that for 6 years, and then finally kind of came back to consulting, and now working here at the city of Prior Lake.
Terrific, terrific. So why municipal work? Any idea? I mean, because you've seen both. You've seen the private sector.
Yep.
Although I don't know if yes, you did. You just talked about the home builder versus city work. Why is that?
Yeah, I really enjoy the municipal work. I love working with residents and getting to work with the public on big infrastructure projects, road projects, water towers. You get to do just a wide variety of things, and you also get to interact with a lot of people. So I like that combination of the social part of it and the engineering side of it.
Okay. Anything to do with diversity? I mean, because there's an awful lot of things that you get involved with at the municipal level. Does that influence you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've heard people describe municipal engineering as being the jack of all trades, master of none. You get to do a lot of different things. You get to wear a lot of different hats. You need to know. So the variety, and every day is a little bit different, so it makes it fun. Gotcha.
Well, the mayor at this last week's meeting called you the director of everything.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Very good. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now as a public works director, you really do have a variety of people and a variety of divisions reporting to you. Can we kind of go through them, division by division, and kind of what they do?
Sure. So yeah, we basically have kind of 3 divisions. We would have our sewer, sanitary sewer, so that would be the collection system of pipes that are within our streets that all of our sanitary sewer flows through. Includes our lift stations.
Right.
We have over 40 around the city.
And is that the same as Shakopee and the same as Savage?
No, we have substantially more than most cities, and that is a result primarily of our lake. A lot of the homes around the lake, topographically, they're lower in elevation compared to everything around it, so to get that sewage up and out and to the Met Council system, we got to pump it uphill, so that's why we have all those lift stations.
So why do we care? I mean, yeah, okay, we got 40, but does that mean there's some additional responsibilities that our sewer crew has that others may not?
Yes, so those lift stations all require maintenance. Those pumps need to be inspected and replaced as needed. We also have emergency generators that are also used with those lift stations, so if there's a power outage, we still have sanitary sewer flow, and we're not having backups into people's homes, and that type of thing. So that does require substantially more maintenance than a typical city would have.
Are there more expenses for us as a city maintaining the system? A gravity system, well, that's gravity taking it to wherever it's going.
Yep.
In our case, it's getting propelled.
Correct.
Right? And that's electrical?
Correct.
For the most part?
Correct. Yep. Those are all electrical.
Okay.
So yeah, the electrical cost, the cost of replacing pumps, the actual structures themselves, the lift stations, all need to be maintained and repaired and replaced. So
okay, and I don't want to get too unsavory here as I talk about this, but the lift station has what's known as a wet well, right?
Correct.
And periodically, do those need maintenance? They have to be emptied out and cleaned out and things of that nature?
Yes. So so there's a certain amount of storage in there. So when the levels rise up to a certain point, then the pumps kick in and pump it back down. So there's kind of a constant fluctuation of levels of flow within those lift stations. So over time, they do need to be cleaned out and maintained.
And we've actually replaced the above ground, the electronics systems on all of our lift stations? Maybe not some of the newer ones, but after a while you do have to replace that stuff, don't you?
Absolutely.
The clean stuff, really, when it gets down to it.
Yep. So we are going out on a weekly basis, checking on our pumps just to make sure that they're functioning properly, and we're taking data on how much they're running, so that we're on top of it. So if something does happen, we're ready to fix it and make sure that there's no disruptions in service to our clients, our customers.
And these things work at night, all night long, hopefully.
Yeah.
And on weekends and holidays, hopefully.
365 days a year.
Right.
Yep.
So what do we do there? I mean, do we just say, hey, call us if you see the light turn red?
No, we do have a system that will notify our public works person who's on call if there is an issue with one of our pumps. So there's an automated system, so then we would have our on-call person respond night or day, weekend or holiday. We always have someone on call available to make sure that that's always functioning.
And they literally do have lights on them, don't they still?
They do have a lot of them have a red light on there. So if there's a red light that's lit,
call us.
Call us. That's right.
And they can call 911, correct?
Correct.
Just to tell them that, look, there's a red light. Is there a green light there too?
Some of them have the green light also. That just means it's functioning.
Okay, green light's good, red light not so much. You want to give us a buzz. Okay. I just wanted people to have a little better idea of how these systems work. And the city's system is where? I mean, does the city system come into my house, or is there a change in ownership somewhere along the way there?
So the change in ownership happens at the street. So the main and the street is the city's. The service from the main to the house is the homeowners.
Okay. And so we know that if a backup occurs inside of a house, it can either be the portion of the system in the house, which makes it the private property owner's responsibility, or our own system that it's draining into.
Correct.
What do we do to try and make sure that that doesn't happen?
We go through all of our system each year with our back truck, and we jet out the sewer lines. We know which areas tend to have a few more problems than others, so they may get jetted out even more often, but we're in there inspecting them and cleaning them out to make sure that we've got good flow. One of the other things that's in this year's budget for 2018 is a televising camera, which if that budget gets approved, we'll be purchasing a camera which we'll also use to televise all of our sewer lines starting next year.
Great. Will that be an HBO series? Or?
No. Maybe not.
Let's not. Okay, so you jet the lines to make sure that they don't have a problem
solids
with backup.
Yep.
Yeah. Darn it, there was one more thing I wanted to pick up on sewers. So that
and the other thing would be inflow and infiltration.
Okay, good. Thank you.
The city gets charged by the Met Council for how much flow we have leaving the city system as it ties into the Met Council's pipes and ultimately to their wastewater treatment plants.
So they have a meter that says blank number of gallons.
Correct.
Right?
So if we've got rainwater or groundwater infiltrating into our sewer pipes and going through that meter, the city's being charged to treat water that isn't necessarily sanitary sewer water.
Gotcha.
So we want to identify those areas where we have water getting into our pipes, whether it be through tree roots or old cracked pipes, or
there it was. Thank you.
That we make repairs and we get that replaced so that we're only treating sanitary sewer water.
Right. And we pay, whether it's pure water going into the Metropolitan Council system or whether it's totally effluent,
Yep.
as we hope it will be. But we means not the city, but each of us as customers, right? It's charged back to us. And so it's to all of our interest that we don't put a bunch of gallons in there.
Correct.
And so one of the things that you see too often is the gray water system in a house actually plumbed into the sewer lines, and that's essentially gray water.
So like a sump pump.
Yeah, a sump pump,
Right.
exactly.
Yep.
They're really supposed to go out the backyard, and I
Correct.
appreciate it's difficult in winter weather, but
Right. Yeah. It's illegal to have them plumbed into our.
intertide.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, and then the last thing on sewer, the pipes, all things being equal, last about, any idea?
50, 60 years. Yep.
Okay. But as then we come through these various projects, the Sycamore Trails, the Cates, the Franklin Trails, in some cases we actually replace sewer pipes. In some cases we line them, right?
Correct.
And because this is an opportune time to extend their lives.
Yes.
That's the theory?
Yes, so before we do a street reconstruction project, we will televise the sewers within those project areas and look at the pipes from the inside and see what kind of condition they're in, what type of material they're made out of. Some of the older lines are old clay pipes.
Yeah.
Now we use PVC plastic.
Right.
And if there are cracks or if it's beyond repair, doing a kind of a slip line, as you mentioned, then we'd want to replace it when we have the street dug up, because that's the most cost-effective time to replace it, when you already have the pavement and everything else removed.
Sure.
If the line's in relatively good condition and slip lining it from the inside is an option, we will consider that as well.
Okay. And so those clay pipes, those old-fashioned, whatever color that was, we want those out of there, right? Because they get nothing but more brittle, and their joints tend to get fouled up, don't they, over
Yep,
time?
and the pipes typically aren't very long. They're like 4 foot length, so there's a lot of joints.
A lot of opportunity
So a
for
lot of
leakage.
opportunity for leakage and tree roots and,
Right.
and that type
And the
of.
tree roots, they sense that moisture and bang, they're on it, aren't
Right,
they?
right,
Over
yes.
time. Nice big trees, though,
Yeah,
on
right.
the other hand. Okay, and the costs, we can't, what is known as specially assess the costs where where there's a line existing, the people have services, but we're trying to extend the life of that pipe or
Right.
that system.
Yep.
How do we pay for that?
So that comes out of the city's sewer trunk fund,
Right.
and that comes from the rates that people pay for their sewer
Right.
and water bills. So when it comes time for the sewer pipes to be replaced in your street,
Right.
you've kind of prepaid for that as part of your sewer rates, and that's where the funding comes for that.
Gotcha. Okay, so we covered sewer ad nauseum, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but it's an important system, let's face
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
No one wants to have a backed up sewer. I've never seen anybody, unless they're
No.
looking for a claim so they can redo their basement.
Yeah.
That's another story. Okay, what's the next division we should talk about?
Water.
Okay, sister to sewer.
So
Or brother,
yeah, that's
whatever
right.
you want to call it.
So our water system is our system of wells,
Okay,
our water tanks, towers,
Right.
our water treatment plant, and all the miles of water main in between that we use to bring water to all of the homes.
about how many miles of pipes are there out there?
Over 100.
Okay, is
Yeah.
that kind of like sewer too? They tend to
Yep.
parallel each other?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and the water towers are for what purpose?
So the water towers are two purposes. One, to provide the water pressure
Okay.
for our homes because of their elevation. Yep. So the gravity pushes the water down and creates that pressure to each of the homes. And
Okay.
then secondly, it's storage.
Right.
So we need
Why
storage
do we need storage? Yeah.
to meet our daily demands.
Okay.
And then also for fire flows. If there was a fire that required a large amount of water to put out a fire, then that storage is necessary so we can meet that demand.
Okay. And is there a lot different usage of water during the summer versus the winter, and why is that?
Yeah. There's a substantial difference between summer and winter usage. Winter usage, we probably average 1.8 million gallons per day, roughly.
So 2 million, just for rounding?
Yep.
Okay. Is that somewhere near the summer usage?
The summer usage, we've gotten up to almost 7 million gallons
a day
on some of our worst days, especially when we had some summers where we had some near drought conditions.
So a lot of people taking showers then, is that what it is?
I think it's mostly irrigation. Yes, a lot of irrigation, so that is not untypical for a lot of cities, but 2 to 3 times normal water usage during the summer, just primarily related to irrigation.
So with respect to water usage, we have met the enemy, and he is us.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, because it costs more money to build a 7 million gallon a day system than a 2 million gallon a day, right?
Correct.
But we have to build the system for this peak, not for down here.
Right. Yeah. So the size.
And so we all pay for it, don't we?
Yes. The size of our water mains are much larger than they need to be for winter usage. The size of our water towers, the number of wells we have throughout the city.
How many wells?
We currently have 7.
I think that's right.
Yes,
but they're,
6. I was going to say 6 or 7.
Up to 10, I think.
Yeah.
Because we abandoned some back
our
in the old
first
days.
wells number 1 and 2 are gone.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so those wells, at one time, well, during the summer months, they are literally running 24 hours a day, are they not?
On a peak day, like when we talked about that 7 million gallon, that would be them running basically almost 24 hours a day.
Is that a good thing?
No.
No. Why?
That puts a lot of wear and tear on those pumps, so we would not like to do that.
Yeah.
We try to alternate which wells we're using, and we try not to run them for more than 20 hours a day.
Yeah. But you don't just shut her down and say, I'm sorry kids, we're out of water today, call us tomorrow.
Right. And that's why we have the odd even sprinkling restrictions during the summer, just to try to help offset some of that. And that's also why we have tiered water rates, is to try to encourage people to really evaluate how much they really need to water their lawns, and not to just do it haphazardly and try to balance their water use.
Sure. And the DNR, I was going to say encourages this. Don't they mandate that we have a multi-tiered system, and in fact that we may go to 3 tiers at some point instead of 2?
Yep, that's absolutely correct. We have to get permits every time we go to drill a new well.
Right.
And so the DNR is going to say, well, what are you doing to conserve water? Why do you need to drill this new well? And so cities have to demonstrate that we're doing what we can to conserve water. So the tiered water rates, the odd even watering restrictions, those are all things that they look for.
Okay. And when you build a sewer water system, you don't get to build, well, you could dig up the ground every so many years and replace an 8-inch pipe with a 12-inch pipe, then next a 16-inch pipe, but we generally tend to oversize an awful lot of these pipes first time through, right?
Correct.
So that we don't have to come back and replace each time. So we know we're at 25,500 right now, almost 26,000 people. We're going to be about 37, 39,000, 2040, 2050, 2060.
Yep.
What are we doing we know that $7 million, 7 million gallon figure is going to go up.
Right.
How are we going to try and compensate for that?
So as part of our city planning efforts, we do a comprehensive plan update every 10 years, and we're actually in the midst of one right now. We're doing one for sewer and water.
Statutorily required to do so, right?
Correct. And so as part of that, we'll look at what the proposed land use is, and based on that land use, whether it's residential or commercial or industrial, there's an estimated water usage for those types of usage, property uses. And then we've got a peaking factor that we've calculated based on what we've seen historically in the city. So for residential property is normally this, but during the summer, because of irrigation and whatever, the peaking factor might be 2.5 times what it normally is. So we'll use those peaking factors on the future land use so we can estimate how much water those areas are going to use. And then when we lay out our trunk water system, we'll size those pipes accordingly, so they're sized the right way. And then ultimately for our long-term water use, one of the things we're working on right now is an agreement with the SMSC on a joint water treatment plant located right off of County Road 82, just south of Mystic Lake Casino there.
On Howard Lake, the old Howard Lake Road, former Howard Lake Road. You can see the boom right there
now.
right now,
Yep.
can't you?
Yep, and so we've got an interest in that as part of this agreement that we're currently working through. Ultimately, that plant will have the ability to be expanded in the future to meet our long-term water needs as the city and our annexation area develops. And in the short term, that treatment plant, the half that the SMSC is building for themselves, will actually have excess capacity too, that we're going to be purchasing water from the SMSC, which will delay our needs for having to drill a well or expand our system.
Well, does that assume that somehow the water treatment plant we presently have is at or near its maximum capacity?
It's very close. We have the ability to add one more well to that plant and increase the capacity a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's near.
It's not going to meet the 2040 needs.
Correct.
Great. Okay, so why don't we just build another one? Come on. Why are we going to go in with someone else on a treatment plant?
Well, I mean, it was such that the SMSC needed a water treatment plant in that kind of general vicinity of town, and so did we.
Yep.
And individually, we could each spend $20 million and build our own water treatment plants. And then
each 20 million them, 20 million us. Okay.
And then have our own wells supplying our own treatment plants. So we're drilling twice the number of wells, and it just didn't make sense. Especially how close they're going to be to one another. So having this combined facility, our share of the cost went from 20 million down to more like 9 to 10 million in the long term.
And this is again over 2040.
Right.
Initial investment looks like 2.5, 3.
Yep.
Something like that.
$2 million bucks. Yep.
As opposed to what was that to build our own?
20
million.
Yeah.
Somehow that makes a lot of sense. But the water's going to be a lot different, right? It'll taste different, look different. No, it's the same stuff.
Yep.
In fact, the first well that'll serve that treatment plant will be ours, right? Or
ours will be one of them.
Okay, one of them.
Yes.
Good.
We're going to be working on getting our well number 6 that's currently located in the Wilds neighborhood, routed over to that plant.
And then, in essence, our respective water treatment systems and distribution systems, almost, the SMSC and the city of Prior Lake, they become one, don't they, in a lot of ways? Because we don't color the water to determine what plant or what well it came out of.
Yep, so they will almost function as one combined system. So we have to coordinate with them on our water levels in our towers and when we're taking part of our water treatment plant offline to do maintenance, and likewise with them. So there'll be constant communication with each other.
So there's that coordination, but is there also some economies of scale in terms of the number of people? I mean, if we had 2 plants, don't we have to have more people to operate those plants than if we've got one plant and we're sharing a plant with some other folks? You almost get, it may not be a ton of people, but it's still
it definitely helps.
Personnel.
Right. Yep.
Which over years and years and years. Okay, so what else about our water system? Okay, and why in the world even have a water treatment plant? But I don't think too many people remember back to
pre-09.
And what happened then? Did you go through some of that too?
No, not specifically here with Prior Lake, but prior to 2009 and the city's water treatment plant being built, we did not treat for iron and manganese removal.
And so what did that give us? Instant coffee.
Taste and odor, definitely complaints and concerns with that. Wasn't a health issue per se, but it was more of a
aesthetic issue. You pay full freight for so many thousands of gallons, and then they're brown.
Right.
And your white shirts don't like them, or your white dresses.
Right.
And so we had plenty of those where people were coming down and getting this rust remover from us, weren't they?
Yes.
Great customer service.
Right.
But that has gone away, little by little by little.
Right. As the new plant got implemented, and as we've flushed out our water mains, which we do typically twice a year, in the spring and in the fall, where if you see us opening up hydrants around town, flushing hydrants, that's to get the last bit of kind of that crud that was in the water main that got built up with the iron and manganese.
Yeah.
Now that that's getting kind of all cleaned out of the system, those complaints have come way down.
So and I don't think most people knew that. So we'd install an 8-inch pipe, for sake of argument, or 6 or 4, I don't care, pick one. And over time, because of the iron and manganese, that pipe got arterial sclerosis, right?
Yeah, right.
As stuff, it collects in there to the side of the pipe, and now an 8-inch pipe has only got the capacity of a 6
Correct.
or a 4 if you let it go long enough. And does that happen at home? I mean, does my 3/4 or 5/8 or 1-inch pipe get the same conditions?
It would be the same inside the home as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we wonder, why don't I have enough water?
Water pressure.
I don't understand. Well, it must be that darn meter. No.
Yeah.
But now things are going a little bit different direction.
Yes.
If people do have, what is a service flush? Just since we're going to cover from soup to nuts.
Yeah.
Service flush is what? Where they'll pull my meter out, they'll actually run the lines to try and clean some of that stuff out?
Yeah.
Put the meter back in?
Yes.
Okay. And that's something I know I've had it done at my house because it's a 30-year-old property, and it's a way of correcting some of those
Correct.
things.
Yep.
Okay. And again, now at the same time as we're doing street improvement projects, we're taking existing pipes out if need be, or we're fairly new technology, even lining water pipes, right?
Yeah, we haven't done too much of the water pipes. Most of our older water main system is either cast iron or metal or ductile iron, and so our new standard we've been going with plastic or PVC water main, and that's the soils that we have here in Prior Lake are very corrosive, and anything that's metal tends to get eroded quickly.
Right.
And so in an effort to try to extend the life of our system, when we go in now, we're replacing metal water main with PVC.
Yeah. And we've had situations, for example, the pipe that runs along 21, I remember a number of years back, it started leaking. And so our guys went in and looked and band-aided the thing. This is a 20-inch pipe or something. I mean, this is a big one.
Yeah.
And they cover it up, go home. Next day it's leaking. They go in, the Band-Aid's holding, but down the line where they exposed the pipe to air, it's leaking because of this corrosive soils, right?
Yeah.
And I think they had to do that 4 times, and we finally went, oops, this has got to be replaced. Otherwise, we're not going to have water to half of the community.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's... I've seen just this year where we've dug up water main breaks where the hydrants or valves are only 20 years old and the bolts are completely disintegrated.
Yeah.
They're holding them together underground.
It's amazing they stay where they do, and you worry that someone puts this spanner wrench on there. Is the thing going to go with it?
Right. Yeah.
Whew. Yeah, crazy. Okay, sewer system, water system,
parks. All of our wonderful parks. So we've got a great crew that maintains and repairs and replaces all of our park equipment and maintains our fields, our soccer fields, our baseball fields.
There's
mowing.
That's 54 parks in total, isn't it? Do I have that right?
Yep.
Or thereabouts?
Yep.
And that includes neighborhood and community and natural. And then we've got, 60 miles of trails and sidewalks?
80 miles.
80 miles.
Yeah.
Incredible. And what am I missing here on... well, that's primarily it, but that's 1,000 acres easily, excluding the lake, and we must have 20, 30 people who maintain the parks, right?
No, 8 full-time.
8 people.
Yeah.
Okay, but and we
seasonals.
We'll grab a goodly handful, 30, 40, 50 sometimes, across all of our public works to help us during the summer. Give these college kids an opportunity to earn a buck during the summer, and then they go back, and our guys go back and do their work. So 8 for parks. Do you remember off the top of your head on water and sewer? Is it?
Well, water is like if you want, there's two.
Two. Okay, basically those are people operating plants, really. Right?
Yeah, they're the two guys that are running the plants and doing all the testing and monitoring and making sure that that's meeting all the health requirements.
Okay. Then our next, what is streets?
Streets.
Okay. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about streets.
So streets is, it's maintaining our streets and sidewalks and trails. They do all our plowing in the winter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So virtually everything that gets done with our
all the
streets.
things you see above ground. That's not, sewer and water is all the kind of the below ground stuff that people don't necessarily see a lot, but all the potholes and the street patching that gets done. That's
signs that are bent out of shape, or they've got so much UV damage they got to be replaced.
Yep.
Or new streets.
Yep.
Right. So, if I'm a street guy, do I just tell you, no, I'm not going to do any sewer or water work, or don't even think about me for parks?
Our street and sewer guys are basically one and the same. They work in both.
Okay.
So we cross share for sure.
And that makes them more valuable if they want to move on in their career, right? They certainly are more valuable to us because they're multi-expertise, multi-talented.
Right.
And we don't have to have 17 of each. We can, interchange them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we've been fortunate. The people that we hire, they tend to be, and I hope this isn't too big a generalization, they tend to be from maybe the rural areas. They may be family folks who have worked around the clock all their lives and are so darn dependable and take care of our stuff like it was their own.
Absolutely.
I swear, I see that.
Yeah. We've got a great group of guys, and they do work very hard, and they're very dedicated, and there's if it's a park person that needs to help out on streets one day or someone helping out with sewer the other day, there's no issues with that. You
don't get those little squabbles that, no, I don't do that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
I'm above that stuff.
No, not at all.
Okay, so we got sewer, we've got water, we've got streets, we got parks, but wait, there's more, right? As they say in the commercial. So you guys maintain over 100 pieces of city equipment, right? Because imagine the equipment you and I have in our garage. Yeah. Now apply that to 18.3 square miles. Yeah. Virtually all of the things we have to do.
Right.
You have to have some pretty heavy-duty, specialized equipment to do it, correct?
Absolutely. So we've got, from the big trucks that you see plowing snow to all the lawnmowers, the different vehicles we use for patching streets, and so we've got quite a bit of equipment at our maintenance center. We actually had an event earlier this spring where we allowed kids to come in on a Saturday and check out all of our equipment, and I think that was a pretty big success. So we'll probably do something again this coming spring.
I'll bet.
So the kids can come in and climb in a truck and check them out.
Right. It's really cool, but we have to, a lot of that equipment has an engineered design life of 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And I remember the days long ago where most of our equipment was well beyond that design life. And the problem was you couldn't count on it to start in a snowstorm or a blizzard.
Right.
Yeah, so you're spending your first hour starting a piece of equipment that you're supposed to be out in the route, making sure that you and I can get to work or wherever, whatever major appointment we have. And so fortunately, we've stored things indoors now.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
And we do preventive maintenance on it. Yes. We've got a couple of mechanics who are just crackerjacks.
We've got 2 full-time mechanics and 1 part-time mechanic that maintain all that equipment, and I didn't even mention the fact that they maintain the fire department and the police department.
Yeah.
So all the squad cars and all the fire trucks and on top of all the maintenance equipment.
Sure.
So they're responsible for all of that.
Now there's some specialty work we will send out. If it's maybe a heavy transmission, that's pretty specialized stuff. Maybe that goes.
There are some things, some body work we won't do ourselves, but
because that's such specialized equipment that it takes an awful lot to get that done. Okay, so that's very important, as you said, to everyone in City Hall,
Right.
because we want to make darn sure that squad car starts up and can perform whatever function it needs to. Fire equipment similarly, and all of the other administrative vehicles that we use. Stormwater. You guys are also responsible for stormwater. What in the world does that mean, and what kinds of things do we get involved with there?
So as a city, we have an MS4 permit with the MPCA, and as a MS4, we are responsible for inspecting and documenting all of our stormwater infrastructure. So that includes all of the stormwater pipes, but all of our ponds and treatment areas and filtration basins. All those things need to be inspected and reviewed annually, and we have to fill out a report.
Mm-hmm. But then they involve particulate matter, insert sand and such. And so we try to do a couple things, don't we? People see us just sweeping and sweeping and sweeping and sweeping, particularly around the lake. And the idea is what?
We all live on the lake.
Yeah, that's a great statement.
I mean, I think that has kind of come to light the last month here at our 2040 visioning. Mm-hmm. There was just kind of this realization that all the things that we're doing from a stormwater perspective is because it helps maintain the lake.
Right.
And as a community, we all enjoy the lake, whether or not you live on the lake or if you go to Sandpoint Beach or however. This is our lake, and the way we protect it is by sweeping the streets and keeping that organic material, leaves, grass clippings, those types of things out of the lake. And then our stormwater ponds, as you mentioned, sand, grit, debris that gets on the streets goes into those stormwater basins. Those stormwater basins are designed to take that, and every so often, maybe once every 8 or 10 years, they need to be cleaned out. You go in there and you clean them out and redevelop that storage area.
Right.
But ultimately,
and it's a perpetual deal, right? It's
correct.
Every 5, 6, 8 years, and the bigger you get, the more there are.
Right.
And hopefully we're reducing some of the sand or organic materials going in there.
Significantly, yeah.
And so maybe that maintenance schedule is not as short. Maybe it's 10 years.
Right.
But we can't ignore it in total. So that's really very, very important, and those kind of costs are picked up by our stormwater fee.
Correct.
That we all pay as part of our sewer and water bill.
Yes.
Some more, some less, depending on how big a property, what kind of use, and a variety of other factors.
Right.
Okay, so that we talked a little bit about city projects, sewer, water, and street replacement that often go together. You're responsible for that as well.
That would be
city
part of our
engineering, right?
On the engineering side, yes.
Right.
Our annual street reconstruction program falls under that department.
Okay.
So each year, our goal is to try to reconstruct 3 to 4 miles of residential city streets.
Right.
And that's to stay on track with keeping our infrastructure up. We've got, billions of dollars in assets. And if you look at the city as a whole with all of our infrastructure, and so it requires maintenance. And so to stay on track and not to let our system fall into a lower level of service, we need to do a certain amount every year. So our street reconstruction is part of that. So each year we target certain neighborhoods that are probably the lowest ranked on our pavement. Right. So each year we try to target about a quarter of the city where we'll go out and rate the pavement. Okay. From a 0 to 100 scale.
100 being perfect, 0 being
yeah, right.
It's gravel.
It's dirt. Yeah, exactly. And so using that information combined with the televising or other information we have on the sewer and water in that area, we'll prioritize which neighborhoods we want to target each year.
And then decide what level of reconstruction we do. We got to do this whole thing. It's shot.
Right.
Or wait a minute, there's some things that can be saved here. Or the overlay project, which is an important part.
So if we're not doing a full reconstruction, it's just the pavement, but all the pipes and everything else are really good underneath, then we will look at doing a mill and overlay project like we did this year in the Cardinal Ridge neighborhood and down off of Five Hawks off of Highway 13, where we just come in and mill off the top inch or two of pavement and put a new surface down.
So we'll put in, let's try and kind of go with the life of a street.
Yeah.
So it's just put in.
Yep.
Sweet. You know, it's the greatest thing in the world. Within what? Within the first year or 2 or 3? I mean, obviously we're sweeping it during that period of time. But isn't there a period of time that we want to give it its first seal coat? Okay, and what is seal coat and why in the world do we do that?
Yeah, so it used to be we'd do it at kind of like year 7 after the street was built, but now we've kind of pushed that up to the first couple years after they're built. So we do what's called a chip seal. So they'll put down a layer of liquid asphalt and they'll put the really fine rock layer on top of it.
Really fine, really sharp.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's the good thing about it being sharp as it is stopping distance. When you hit your brakes in your car, you're going to stop that much faster because of the friction that's on the street. But if you fall down when you're rollerblading on it, it might not be as fun. But
no. And why in the world do we put that darn rock on there?
It's that's part of it. It's to make sure we have good stopping distances and to have that level of friction. But
isn't it also a hardener? I mean, doesn't it kind of put, so you got the oil and this stuff together, and it's like
that's granite. I mean, it's basically little granite chips. And so it's sealing up the little micro cracks in the surface of the street so that as we get winters and we have freeze and thaw, those cracks don't get bigger and bigger. But yeah, then it also does create a wearing surface, so as the cars are traveling back and forth over the top of it, it's just going to wear better over time, last longer.
You think all the things, garbage trucks, moving trucks, school buses, all the conveyances that each of us have. And we also do, as part of that, the bigger cracks get filled, right?
At a time,
and again, what we're trying to do is stop Mother Nature from putting water in the street that goes into the street, down to the sub-base, and creates havoc through freeze, thaw, freeze, thaw. It's a heck of a place to do business.
So ultimately we would like to do, after you have a brand new street, we'd like to do a seal coat year 2 or 3.
Thank you for continuing.
And then maybe come back again 10 years later, so maybe at year 12, 13, try to hit it again. After you've had 2 chip seals done on it, that's kind of the max. And then when you get to that year 20, 25, that's when you're looking at doing the mill and overlay type projects, where you're coming in, you're milling off that top inch and a half, and repaving it. You're doing some spot curb repair as part of that.
It's been chipped up,
if it's been damaged
or away or something. And we don't do that. We don't go back on the 50-year-old streets to do that. They tend to be more the modern era streets. And why is that? I mean, is there something different about those streets that were built way back there than, there's curb and gutter for the most part, isn't there?
Correct. All our new streets would have the concrete curb and gutter, and then also just the thickness of the pavement itself. Some of our older streets might only have an inch or 2 of pavement.
They were temporary streets in a lot of cases.
So if you milled off an inch or 2, there wouldn't be anything left. Where our new streets are typically all 4 inches thick now, just for a standard residential street. So
and then isn't the bed those streets are lying in different than some of the clays? I mean, it was just, we're just going to put down this bituminous. We're not doing anything below it. And that doesn't provide the support necessary.
No, we do a lot depending on the soil conditions of the area, but if soil corrections are needed, sometimes we'll put in 2 feet of sand, another 8 or 10 inches of class 5 rock, and then the 4 inches of bituminous on top of that. The amount of sand varies depending on how bad the soils are, but we definitely are doing a lot more to.
And we are in Prior Lake, so generally bad to worse, isn't it?
There's not a lot of great spots, that's true.
I don't think we have many truly sandy areas, do we?
Not
I
too
suppose
much.
There are a few. So that makes it even more difficult. Okay, is that most of the divisions for Public Works, or have I missed anything?
No, I think you got Public Works pretty well covered.
Okay, so now I think some people perceive that there are times during the course of the year where we're sitting on our hands. And can we talk a little bit about that? For example, so people might think the guys who are doing the snow plowing are not doing a whole heck of a lot during the summer. what are they doing during the summer? And vice versa.
Yeah.
The park guys, what the heck are they doing during the winter? We don't do that many rinks. We certainly don't have to mow.
Yeah, well, they all do double duty. So the summers, if they're mowing lawns, in the winter they're plowing snow. It's the same guys. It's not one guy does this and a different guy does that. So they're doing double duty. They're also doing maintenance on equipment and other things during the winter. They can do some maintenance things on some of our park facilities, some of our shelters, and some other things that can be done.
Yeah, things like picnic tables.
Right.
People probably wonder, why do they look brand new even though they're years and years and years old?
Right.
Well, because during the winter months they're taken into the old Met Council maintenance building we have, and we just paint the dickens out of those things.
Yeah.
And the same thing with trash containers and all of those sorts of things that most people see in our parks. And I don't know if we pull out any of the grills and jazz like that and work on them, or if I know we buy the ones that are kind of battle axes. They're not gonna.
That right.
You could hit them with a truck, and the truck is going to be the damaged vehicle. Right.
Yep.
Okay, and I think you said some of the things, we used to do this a lot more, where we would actually build our own shelters.
Yep.
We did that because it was a heck of a lot cheaper. We weren't charging full rates. We could get sentencing to service people to come in there and maybe help us in one fashion or another. But we're just running out of time to get these things done, aren't we?
Well, that combined with the fact when you mentioned at the beginning that we have 54 parks and 8 full-time park staff, our number of park staff hasn't really changed much over the last 10-20 years, but our number of parks has doubled.
Wow.
So they're very much spending their time on maintaining what we have. They don't have free time to build new parks.
Right. And so a lot of their time is spent on the community parks, which are intensely used spring, summer, and fall. And some people, PLAY, soccer club, would say there's not enough of those.
Right.
But we're doing our best to get single, double, triple duty out of those. So they're baseball field one time a year, soccer, football, any other
lacrosse.
sport. Yeah, lacrosse.
Exactly.
Then some of them become hockey rinks in the winter, etc.
Yep.
So trying to squeeze the most out of all of these things that we possibly can. So what do you see as you look forward in the public works field? What do you see more? Well, are there positive things to look forward to from a public works maintenance perspective? Things that you're seeing these are really improvements.
Just one of the ways we deal with snow.
Good point.
We used to just use sand and salt.
Yep.
Now that we've got a much more new technology in regards to what we call pre-wetting the streets and using brine to handle our snow maintenance has been a huge improvement. We've got our trucks equipped with tanks that will go out and pre-wet our streets prior to a storm event happening. And that does a couple of things. First, if we have just a minor dusting of snow or a lighter snowfall, that brine will just melt the snow on impact. And
so we don't even
have to go out.
And that saves overtime?
Correct.
Wear and tear on the vehicles?
Correct.
Hours by the employees, whole variety of things.
Right. And then if we do have a bigger snow event, what it does is it helps prevent that snow and ice from bonding with the street surface itself. So when we come in and we plow it, we get right down to the bare pavement, first pass, or nearly first pass, and we don't have to come back and salt them as nearly as much afterwards to try to get back down to bare pavement. So, I mean, our newer plow trucks are all, the computer equipment inside of those things is amazing, very sophisticated. So when we're driving down the street, they know based on how fast you're going, what the air temperature is,
temperature of the blacktop,
temperature of the pavement. Yep, and then it will dictate how much it's distributing that brine solution out of the back of the truck and putting it onto the pavement.
And that must cost a whole lot more, right?
No, actually, I mean, so we save money by not having to purchase as much raw salt.
Right.
So our raw salt usage has gone down. The brine solution is it's just basically water and some salt. The salt percentage is much lower, and That's actually a savings to the city by doing that.
Sure. So we have our own brewmaster.
We do.
We often joke about that.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first cities in the metro area to have that. I remember we and another community, it was an outstate community, had been testing it, and it's proved successful. And you see more and more moving to it, and it's great. Less salt on the road, less damage to the vehicles, less damage to our water bodies and our natural areas. Less sand, less particulate going into the lake. It all is one big whole, holistic.
Yeah, we don't even really use sand anymore.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that is a substantial change from what I'm used to. The other deal about the binding not taking place, that's tough to remove once it's there, right? Once that ice, that snow is actually kind of compressed to ice now, trying to get it off, we don't have the equipment to do it. I mean, we've got certain front-end loaders, and we don't have any graders, but that can exert down pressure.
Well, that usually what ends up typically happening is you just try to place a bunch of salt on it to try to get it to melt. But knowing our Minnesota climate, there's some temperatures where even salt isn't effective.
It's no longer effective.
Yeah.
And that's another place where Brian can help, because we're able to kind of stretch that effectiveness, aren't we? By putting certain things in it.
Right.
Nothing mysterious, but you know, it is kind of an art form in some respects.
Absolutely.
So, okay. So that's some positive things. Similarly, we get these 12 gang mowers that mow, almost a house-wide. No, it's not quite that much, but it's a broad stroke for big production mowing and that sort of thing. And some of the materials we're using now in our facilities are very resistant to UV. They're very resistant to someone trying to bust them up. And that's beneficial as well. Right. How about other things? Any on the negative side, things that we see out there that we really shouldn't have to deal with? The one that comes to my mind is vandalism. And we saw a rash of that.
This year was a bad year.
Yes, yes. So we're seeing that more. And unfortunately, some of it is not just about damaging equipment. Some of it is about making statements that are just not acceptable.
Right. Yeah, that's unfortunate. And I don't know, we just keep encouraging people that if they witness any of that or see any suspicious activity, that they call the police right away. And,
is that 911?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't hesitate.
Because we can't catch them. I mean, you got to catch them in the act. That's the nature of our legal system anymore. We can take someone's word for it and go and try and scare them a bit. Right. But I think a lot of those kids are beyond scared in some cases. It doesn't get you any real purchase with them. Any other? Okay, driverless vehicles. Is that going to radically change public works? Just throw you a real curveball?
That's hard to say. You know, who knows what the future is with all of that? But it's funny because some of that conversation about driverless vehicles has even come up with our conversations on 21 and 13.
Sure.
When you're looking at putting in improvements that are meant to last for 40 years, it's hard to anticipate exactly what the transportation system is going to look like with all the new technology that keeps ramping up year after year. Yeah. But we don't assume that it's going to happen. But so we're looking at designs like going back to 21 and 13 that are going to handle traffic with the cars we have today, assuming increased demand, but not anticipating any driverless cars yet at this point.
You bet. There you go. So talking about the future, but pulling that aperture a little bit in, as you indicated, the City Council made a decision now to go with the A2 alternative for the 2113 corridor. We really have to refer to it as a corridor because it's multi-intersection, not just one. Right. Does that mean our work is all over with that? The county now takes it, puts it in their black box, and all of a sudden things happen? Or are we still active? Are you still active?
Yes, I'll be. Yes, the city will be, and I will be very active in the design now. So basically, the concept and what each intersection is going to have, whether it's a 3/4 access or if it's the roundabout at Arcadia or any of the pedestrian improvements. Now is the time we're going to get into the design.
Right.
So for basically all of 2018 is going to be focusing on the design, looking at impacts to adjacent properties, and fine-tuning those design details. And so the county will be working with the city, and we'll be making sure that the city's interests are expressed and included in those plans throughout that process.
And I mean, some of the details have to do with what kind of shrubbery and landscaping will be included. What kind of lights? Will the lights mesh with our lights?
Right.
Hopefully. What other kinds of things can be expected? Will there be signals that will allow the pedestrians to walk back and forth? Will they be smart lights? Not so smart. And I'm not even quite sure what I'm talking about, just to show you how smart I am. So those are really getting into the nitty-gritty.
The neat thing with the alternative that was ultimately selected by the City Council, the A2 alternative with the roundabout at 13 and 21 and the roundabout at Arcadia and 21, is you've created this corridor where there's going to be some really neat opportunities for streetscaping. It's going to really allow the city to have some opportunities to really create that as almost more of a destination than just a highway where people are just trying to zip through it.
And that's long been a concern, that people would just use this as a means to get to 35.
Right.
And the nice thing about those two bookend roundabouts is you can't take a roundabout at much more than 20 miles an hour.
Well, yeah, they're designed for 15 to 20 miles an hour. Right?
So you're going to slow down coming in. You may have a little acceleration here, but you're going to slow down going out, and vice versa, without the necessity of some electronic contrivance that really reduces the effect. I mean, these intersections are available every second of every day.
Right.
A light is not.
Right.
You know, unless you don't mind stopping.
Right.
Right. So I mean, they've got those benefits as well.
They should have good traffic flow through there. So yeah, as you said, traffic will be constantly flowing. The backups will be minimized.
Right.
And and so as far as the pedestrian crossings, we'll be looking at different options for enhancements to make sure that the pedestrian crossings are as safe as possible and that they're easily used by young and old.
Right.
And ADA, of course, so for all types of uses and bikes and
and Maine is within those bookends.
Correct.
And very close to one of them, so hopefully the traffic is dampered in terms of speed. And people might wonder, well, why does it take so darn long to do plans and specifications? Precisely for the reasons we just talked about. This project is what, $7 to $9 to $10 million bucks?
Right.
Not totally known yet, because you have to total all these things up. And so it takes quite a bit of planning to make sure all of this stuff works together.
That combined with, we know we're going to have impacts on adjacent properties. So there will be some property acquisition, not along that corridor. And so working with those property owners that are impacted to make sure that they're treated fairly and that we work through those purchases takes time also.
Unfortunately, for many, many years, the city has been aware that improvements would have to be made here ultimately. And so we bought things like the Flowers Naturally building in order to try and provide that. The parking lot in front of Rock Creek. There's a large amount of right-of-way, either state or county or city owned in other areas. So hopefully that dampens some of the impacts on private property.
There's not going to be any total acquisitions. It's more of these slivers along that new roadway that will need to be acquired.
Need a little more buffer there. So some people just heard roundabouts and went, oh my gosh, I hate them, okay? And I understand that. I understand there's even training. Now it's not multi-day or anything like that, but are you aware of places people can go on the internet, or should they just Google roundabout?
You could Google or YouTube. There's lots of videos on how to navigate roundabouts. But I think as a city, once the roundabout at 13 and 21 is getting close to be opened up, we'll probably offer some training and some links to training videos. it is a little bit more complicated because it is a multi-lane roundabout, so you've got 2 lanes versus just 1 lane in each direction. So there is some knowledge that people need to have when they use those, and so we will be definitely encouraging some training and public engagement as we get closer to that opening.
Great. And the idea here is to get it all done at once, as I recall. I know there was talk about doing 1 lane or 2 lanes at 13 and 21. I'm hopeful that it all gets done at one time, so for 20 years we have some stability, or whatever that time period is.
I think the only thing that they were talking about, so with 21, the 2 lanes in each direction, that'll be right out of the gate. On 13, north and south, there is potential that it would be 1 lane in each direction initially, but it would be built.
Oh, the roundabout
itself would be built for the 2 lanes, so that maybe they use striping to close off part of it, so we only need the 1 lane in either direction initially. But as traffic volumes increase and we need the additional 2 lanes in each direction, north-south on 13, that it would just be a matter of removing some striping and doing maybe some minor curb work.
That's great.
It wouldn't be a major construction.
No one should have to go through this whole thing all over again. And it just created well, it's got the potential for creating and messing up relationships, and no one wants that. Okay, as far as my little agenda says, we've kind of covered everything. Maybe the only thing we want to remind folks about is the fact that we do ask them not to park on the street. Right?
The winter here, from November 1st.
2 a.m. to 6 a.m. November 1st to, what do we say, March 31st?
Correct.
Okay, and do we do that because we just like to be jerks? Or what's the purpose?
It's for snow removal. And when we have to plow around cars that are parked on the street, it just creates more work, and we have to come back, and then there's piles of snow, and if your car happens to be the one that's sitting in the street, you got a huge pile of snow around your car, and you got to try to dig it out.
Or it's towed.
So it's just much simpler to just not have cars parked during that time.
Yeah, I know we talked to the chief, I think it was yesterday at the staff meeting. He said, look, what we try to do right now is go around and advise people,
give them some more.
Next time, this could be a tow, and the tows are $200. You don't want to do that.
Right.
So that it's just a reminder. We're not trying to play gotcha with anybody.
Right.
Okay. Any other things, Jason?
Maybe I'm just going to highlight quick. We've got some major kind of county, state projects that are going to be coming up over the next several years.
That's a great idea. Little longer range.
Yep. So
as long as 19.
Yeah. So in 2019, we've got a number of things happening. Well, I should even back up. So in 2018,
right.
So next year, MnDOT is going to be doing some work on Highway 13 from County Road 21 north up through Savage, almost all the way up to 101. And that's going to be a resurfacing of the roadway. So they're going to mill off about 1 inch of the pavement and resurface that. So that's going to be happening next year.
And that's cool. Is the road
They
open?
do that under traffic, so so they will not be closing the road.
It'll be a pain, but at least we can get through on it.
Correct.
Okay.
In 2019, they're going to be reconstructing Highway 13 from 21 south all the way down to County Road 282, 17, that crazy little S curve down there.
Way down there.
By the Scott County Public Works. And that's going to be a full closure.
Yeah.
So when they do that, they're going to be removing all the pavement all the way down to the gravel below it, and then rebuilding the street back up. So they're anticipating doing that in 2 pieces. So it'd be from 21 down to 12 as one piece, and then from 12 the rest of the way south down to 282 as a second piece.
Okay. And in our community, Duluth and 13 may or may not be part of that 19 work, right?
We're still waiting to hear on Duluth and 13. We're trying to identify some additional funding from MnDOT to help pay for improvements at 13 and Duluth.
Right. So that's the access to South Lake Village.
Yeah, exactly. The Dairy Queen and Holiday gas station. Yep. So if we are able to secure this additional funding we've asked MnDOT for, that could potentially be done in 2018.
Okay.
It would be great to try to get that done ahead of time before the Highway 13 work gets done by MnDOT the following year, but we're still waiting to see on how that turns out.
And some of the work we're doing right now and next year is trying to provide alternative
Franklin Trail, yes.
Franklin Trail, and no one on Franklin Trail wants to hear this, I'm sure, but we do have to find means of bypassing people, and ultimately we do want these roads kept up to speed.
Definitely
Literally
helps for
and
the local
figuratively.
trips. Yep, yeah, we want the local trips, and we want those area businesses to be able to survive during these construction times, because 18, 19, and in the year 2020, there's going to be a lot of different construction going on, and so we need to be aware of that and try to phase that in such a way that we're minimizing the impact to our businesses as much as possible.
Right, very sensitive to that. Good, that was a good point, thank you. Anything else that you can think of?
Other than, so next year the other thing would be County Road 13 and 42. That project is going to, Scott County is going to be initiating that, so construction will be starting on that.
And that goes all the way over into Savage, doesn't it?
Yep, so it goes,
I don't know what the name
I
of
think
the
it's like
streets
Boone on the Savage side, on the west end, all the way past Target, and I think almost all the way to Louisiana on the other end in Savage. So
and that gets rid of those temporary signals that have been temporary
signals
for
go
20 years, I think, or whatever
I
it
remember
is.
when those went in. I think it was 2004.
Yeah, incredible.
That, and they're going to be adding some additional double left turn lanes at the intersection to increase some capacity there, and they'll be also completing the trail network through there, which will be nice for pedestrians trying to get through that area.
Yeah. And we're trying to bit by bit address the trail issues on 13, but that's easier said than done.
Yeah, but as part of that, the 13 project that we mentioned, where we're going to have the closure from 21 south, there are parts in there that we are trying to look at adding some missing trail segments there too as part of that.
That's great for safety's sake. We've all seen tragedies that have occurred there.
Yep.
Okay, anything else, Jason? Good.
I think that's enough for now.
Great announcements there. If people want to reach you, do you mind if we just we'll put a little crawler across the bottom here?
Absolutely.
Provides your email address and maybe phone number, general phone number for Public Works.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for being on the program.
Yeah,
Very
thanks for having me.
informative.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We hope you enjoy the information that you receive through this program. Until next time, I'm Frank Boyles saying, have a great day.